New Orleans Saints football officially back. The Saints taking down Kansas City Chiefs 26-24 in the preseason opener here at home. We're here to recap all of it. I've got Rajun, Valdes, and a very special guest today, Nick Underhill from neworleans.football. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to jump straight into it. We're going to start with the quarterbacks. Derek Carr got one drive with the starters, 6 for 8, finished off with a touchdown, extended plays, looked comfortable. Jameis Winston came in, took a few sacks, but he was efficient, completed 11 of 13 passes with a touchdown. And then in the second half, it was the rookie. It was Jay Kaner out of Fresno State. Started off slow, picked it up towards the end of the game. Just, Raging, what were your impressions of Haener in that game?
I think he was able to get the team back into position just to get them, secured with that win, and he looked confident out there.
And I know, Nick, you said that it was the opposite of what you were expecting in Haener's debut. What were your takeaways from that game?
Just the first couple passes, I thought the game was moving a little bit fast for him, and then he threw the interception, and there was maybe a miscommunication there, but he had seemed just so poised. Nothing bothered him in these practices, and I was kind of shocked by how much command he had just from the very first time he stepped on the practice field. But I think it's going to take him a little bit of time to maybe show himself, maybe show all the positive traits he was showing in these practices. But overall, I think it was a decent first game for him. It's just, you got to have a starting point, you got to play the games, and he's a mid-round pick for a reason. But I thought it was an okay performance, and I thought he acquitted himself well after maybe the first series maybe didn't go how he wanted it to.
Now, we've seen Jameis struggle a little bit holding onto the ball a lot, underthrowing balls in camp. Do you think it's unrealistic if Haener picks it up in preseason that he's the number 2 quarterback on this roster?
I think even if Jameis for some reason weren't here and there was an injury with Derek Carr, I think they're going to Taysom Hill probably, and then Haener would be the guy behind him. But maybe that is an insurance policy at some point. Look, if there's an injury somewhere, say, Jimmy Garoppolo goes down, I wouldn't be totally shocked if teams started calling for Jameis, because he probably is that next best option. But I think if something were to happen, I think it's definitely take some time for sure.
So every quarterback needs a running back. Saints are going to be without Alvin Kamara first 3 games of the season. Kirk Merritt didn't play in that preseason game. And then Kendre Miller, the rookie out of TCU, leaves the game with an injury. And Ellis Merriweather kind of comes out of nowhere, scores a touchdown, puts the Saints in position to win that game. Do you feel like with the circumstances in that room, he's put himself in a position to get a spot on this 53-man roster?
I think he's still got work to do, honestly. And, maybe to start, given that the situation's what it is, I've heard that Kendre Miller should be back for week 1. He's supposed to miss maybe 2 weeks. It is just a knee sprain, so I don't think it's a major injury. It's not that's going to need surgery or anything like that. But I did think Ellis Merriweather played as good as he possibly could have, and I thought he made a strong case for himself. But just the numbers being what they are, Darrell Williams getting signed, I think he still has an uphill battle to make the team.
Do you find that Darrell will make the team before he would?
I think so, just because I think the fit is just so natural. If you take Alvin out, you want somebody to catch passes. He's going to be able to do some of that. But I do think that there might be a chance that he makes the team early in the season, or he could be, they have the practice squad elevation too, where he could be there and they could elevate him for the first couple games and maybe fill the gap that way. But I think long term, he's probably the odd guy out.
Now, staying with the offense, Keith Kirkwood caught that touchdown from Derek Carr in the opening drive. Had a great day in practice Friday, had a couple nice catches in the end zone. He's been in this offense before. Do you feel like, Raging, he's put himself in a position to make this 53-man roster in one of those final spots?
I think there's a lot of receivers that have that opportunity, but I definitely see that performance boosting his odds to get in there, yeah.
Now, a lot of the conversation has been Bryan Edwards, A.T. Perry, James Washington. Where does Keith Kirkwood fit with all those names?
I agree with you. I think Keith Kirkwood has probably made a very strong case for himself to get on the team. He's a veteran guy. He's been around for a while. He's just been consistent. Even from the first time he was here, he just goes out, he makes plays like that. And if you need a veteran guy on this team, I think he's someone that can come in, he can play in the slot, he's solid on the outside. A.T. Perry's also in that mix, so just kind of depending on what the numbers are, they might go with the young guy, but I think that Keith Kirkwood has made a really strong case to make the team.
Now, another spot that this team has a lot of competition is the linebacker group. We've talked about it all throughout camp. Dennis Allen said they weren't sure who that number 3 guy was going to be. And we've got Demario Davis, he's an all-pro player. Pete Werner's been productive, but hasn't stayed on the field for a full season yet in the NFL. Brought in Jalen Smith, he figures to be that 3rd guy. But then you've got a mixed bag of undrafted guys like Anthony Orji, who's flashed throughout camp and on Sunday in that game, some veterans in Zach Bond and Ryan Connolly, guys like DeMarco Jackson coming off injury. Who has stood out to you as that 4th guy?
Yeah, so just going beyond Jalen Smith, I think it's Nephi Sewell. I think he's been the most consistent performer. He got the start in the last game. I thought he was really good in last year's camp too, and he just keeps building on that and getting better and better. So I think that he would be the guy. I think we got to see more from Jalen Smith, though. He got beat a few times in his first practice out here. He did have one pass breakup. So I think it might take him a little time to settle in. His pedigree being what it is, I'd be shocked if he's not like the next guy behind Pete Werner and Demario Davis. But if you go to 4, I think it's Sewell for sure.
Rajun, has anyone stood out to you in the group?
I mean, obviously you have Demario, but I think Jalen's coming here to he's had a couple of rough few spouts these last 2 teams, and I think he's kind of coming here to just revitalize his game. I think Jalen.
I think Ryan Connolly has given himself a chance to make this 53-man roster. He's the name that I would be looking out for, as well as Anthony Orji. I think out of the undrafted class, he's one of the guys that has a legitimate chance to stick. He isn't a guy who makes a ton of flashy plays, but always near the ball, always making plays. And another guy that I have noticed that with personally is JT Gray. He's known to be a special teams ace, but that's really all he's known for is playing special teams. He said earlier in camp that he believes he can contribute on defense, and in that preseason game Sunday, he made a few hits. He tackled well in the open field. He was closing out on passes. Where do you think his role is in this defense?
I've always thought he was pretty good at safety, and he got some opportunities to play before, and he's flashed, and he's better at that than people think. Like you said, it is special teams is going to be his way on the team, and he'll make the team just specifically for being an elite gunner. But if the depth just deteriorates, yeah, he's someone they can put on the field. But I think Jordan Howden's someone that's probably ahead of him right now. There's some other guys there too. I think Lonnie Johnson Jr. is someone that, being just the free safety types, which is what JT is, he might be ahead of him too, just in terms of defense only. But Gray's going to get on the team, and he can definitely play on defense.
Has there been anyone who stood out to you from the rest of the bunch from that game Sunday or in training camp?
I think A.T. Perry, he definitely started the training camp with a few drops, but then just to turn around first game, go 6 for 6 with 70 yards and leading the team just receiving yards in the preseason game, I think he's stood out pretty well.
Now, the offense looked explosive coming out for the first couple drives of that game, but there was a kind of noticeable drop-off with the offensive line from the 1s to the 2s. And for me, that's the biggest thing that this team is going to need to improve on from week 1 into week 2 of the preseason. What's kind of the biggest area that you think needs to be improved upon?
It's kind of deep in the woods, but punting, I thought both punters were kind of inconsistent and poor. And I don't know if they're punters on the team right now. Blake Gillikin and Lou Headley have both been kind of inconsistent in practices, and then we see it in the game as well. I think that's something that they really got to figure out.
I think definitely the pass rushing group, they had a few opportunities where they could have got to the quarterback, but we found where the quarterback would break out and get some yards out of that. And I think just further on in the season, that's going to hurt you.
That's all we have for today's recap of week 1 of the preseason. Saints still undefeated as they head out to LA to play against the Chargers. I'm Adam Guttuso. He's Rajun Valdes. Once again, thank you so much to Nick Underhill from neworleans.football. Be sure to go check them out. They have a great staff over there. They put out some awesome content. Just launched an app. So be sure to check them out again, neworleans.football.